And next we'll have a message from the Federation of Student Islamic Societies, otherwise known as FOSIS, from Dr. Faisal Hanjra. So if you'd like to take the seat.
Brothers and sisters, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good evening. I want to start, I think, today by thanking the MCB for inviting me here today and for pushing forward such a wonderful and relevant initiative. Before I launch into my speech and what I have to say, I think today's event is a wonderful testament to the hard work of the MCB Youth Committee, as well as a striking illustration, I think, of just how far young British Muslims in totality have come. It was only a few years ago that this committee was established, and for it to have achieved so much in such a little time, I think is truly inspirational. I think what I wanted to do today was I wanted to throw out some ideas. I wanted to throw out some ideas to hopefully generate debate over the next few weeks, and just to push some themes and to hopefully get feedback via the blog, like I said, over the next couple of weeks. I also think for us to predict or for us to know where we're going in the future, I think we very much need to know where we've come from, just the historical context of a lot of what we've done over the past few years. I've had the privilege and the honor really of being involved in one of the largest and one of the oldest Muslim organizations for the past 5 years, and it's been a truly inspirational and such a motivational time. Over the past few years, Muslim students have raised over £1 million for orphans around the world. We have seen the launch of themed weeks from Green Week to Anti-Terror Week to the War on Terror Week to the Islam Awareness Week. We've seen campaigning on traditional issues such as Palestine and newer issues such as climate change. We've seen across the board Muslim students really excelling and pushing boundaries. There are now well over 100,000 Muslim students in further and higher education. We've seen greater political participation within local student unions, within the National Union of Students. Muslim students getting involved in the local democratic processes for the benefit of all students. I would challenge you here today, visit the vast majority of student unions across the country, and I challenge you really to find a single student union officer who doesn't turn around and say to you that their local Islamic society is one of the most active societies on campus and at the fore of service provision. And I think all of that is a wonderful reflection of the great work that is being done by Muslim students every single day. And students have always been at the forefront of social change. Commentators have long noted that you can measure the vibrancy of a society and perhaps a society's willingness to fight injustice by the activity of their students. For time immemorial, students have been at the forefront of campaigning, be it the apartheid in South Africa, the Vietnam War, and arguably even the recent crisis in Iran. You've seen students out on the street really leading society and leading local populations. I can't help but think of politicians who sit in parliament today, who during their student days were calling for the overthrow of democracy and the establishment of a different government in its entirety. Really, students are meant to be and have always been radical. There's nothing new about that, and there's nothing different about being radical and being a student. To be otherwise, to not be radical really would be doing a disservice, I think, to one's university's experience. And I think it's crucial that during this time of ever-increasing commercialization of higher education and with university funding being cut year on year, that this student experience really is protected. At a time when the media run regular stories about binge drinking on campuses and the general antisocial antics of a tiny minority of students, I firmly believe that Muslim students remain committed, along with other groups of students. They're one of the few groups of students that remain dedicated to upholding that legacy of student activism. When Israel undertook its bombing campaign and the systematic destruction of Gaza last year, we saw Muslim students occupy lecture theatres in conjunction with their non-Muslim friends, raising awareness of the issue on campus and demanding that the university do more in speaking out against the injustice. It was Muslim students during the month of Ramadan who organised flash iftar initiatives, which basically meant a bunch of students, Muslim students, turning up with local homeless people and sharing food and breaking the fast with local, again, like I said, local homeless people. When the devastating earthquake hit Haiti just last week, it was Muslim students who were amongst the first to start fundraising on their individual campuses. Whatever you think of the causes that I've highlighted or the methods of campaigning used in those particular causes, one thing I think which we must all agree on is that an active, engaged student political scene is far more beneficial to society than a disengaged, distracted and subdued student body. Imagine all of this that's been done over the past few years, and I have yet to mention the E words. The issue of extremism has dogged Muslim students since the tragic and terrible events of 7/7. As the arrest of Umar Farouk on the 25th of December highlighted, that whatever happens anywhere in the world, irrespective of circumstances and evidence, as long as there is a university connection, however vague or however irrelevant, Muslim students will continue and will have to account for the actions of individuals most do not know and few would have heard of. In the fight against terror, we seem to have given up many of our most basic values, and that is certainly to the detriment of society. Tony Blair, incorrectly, just after 7/7, sought to paint this issue of terrorism as a battle of values, the West versus Al-Qaeda. If this was truly the case, then it's hard to see how Al-Qaeda has not won. The reality, though, is a lot simpler, and as countless intelligence reports have indicated, that this has little to do with values, but far more to do with an unjust foreign policy and a distortion of Islamic teaching. In the process of defending our values, this government has allowed for a minority community to be demonized and criminalized. Islamophobia is on the increase. We have relinquished many of our fundamental civil liberties and basic premises such as the presumption of innocence until proven guilty has been discarded. And Muslim students, unfortunately, have found themselves at the center of much of this attention, with ill-founded attempts by right-wing think tanks to paint campuses as dangerous arenas of radicalization, despite all the evidence pointing to the contrary, deliberately politicizing the issue of national security. Muslim students generally have had to deal with an increase in suspicion. There's been an increase in suspicion from their peers, and who can blame them given the media reporting. They've been threatening approaches by the security services on campus, and a general feeling of just not belonging in a society they once considered home. And no group of students should have had to experience that, and no group of students should have to have their higher education experience tainted by that. Yet, in spite of all of this, in spite of all of these negative experiences, Muslim students still emerge and still have achieved so much over the past 5 years, and it is this which gives me the greatest hope for the next 10. The last 5 years has been an awesome roller coaster. It's been a years of up and down, and I'm certain the next 10 years, inshallah, will be the most dynamic and the most exciting in the history of the Muslim student movements. Crucially, we need to come together, different stakeholders within society, coming together to ensure that we stand firm, and we stand firm against the erosion of our most fundamental of values. We cannot allow for any minority group to be subject to the vitriolic attacks which we've seen against the Muslim community since 2005. Crucially, on the issue of extremism, we need now more than ever an open and honest debate. Away from the political agendas, away from the media sensationalism. We need an honest and open debate about the causes of it, where we're going with it, and how we're planning to tackle it. We can, as civil society, accomplish this. While the past few years have been filled with many worrying events, certain beacons of positive initiatives really stand out. The work that Campus Salam, for example, have done in partnership with local Islamic societies. The partnership that's been done between various organizations, such as the National Union of Students, Vice Chancellors and student unions. All of these stand out as positive beacons of work and things which we can draw strength from in terms of moving forward. Working together, we've managed to resist much of the hysteria that's been really brought to bear on us by right-wing media. And more of these initiatives will certainly help us in terms of countering the issue of extremism. From that, we need to, over the next 10 years, I firmly believe, we need to work hard in terms of countering the rise of the far right. With recent gains by the BNP and with the rise of groups like the EDL, we all across society need to be worried. Anti-Muslim hatred, which is in some instances directly linked to counter-terrorism strategy and media reporting, really needs to be urgently addressed. Muslims born and bred here must feel that their country continues to welcome them here and that they continue to be part of this very society which they are brought up in. Away from extremism, we need to look closely at what is stopping young British Muslims either getting into higher education or graduating, or once they graduate from higher education, getting jobs. I think as a Muslim community, we need to have a lot of internal debates around different issues and how we reconcile some of those issues, particularly in international affairs, how we reconcile some of those international issues with local domestic policy. All of this needs to happen, fairly significantly and fairly soon, and it will certainly be challenging. All of these facts, I feel, will be significant in deciding just what the course of the community and just what course the community takes over the next 10 years. And of all of this, one can never forget that the greatest and most decisive factor in terms of the direction of the community comes from within the community itself. And things certainly from there are very, very positive. Muslim students continue to play their role, irrespective of what happens over the next few years. Whoever is elected to government and whichever think tank chooses to take aim at us, one thing is for sure, Muslim students will always be at the forefront of campaigning for social change. They will always be at the forefront of enjoining the good and forbidding the evil. This is, after all, what our religion teaches us and what history testifies to. I look forward to reading more of these discussions and more of these debates on the blog. And finally, a word of warning to all those who try and de-radicalize us. I wouldn't bother. It's what us students do best. Thank you very much.